To understand As You Like It, it helps to think about the feeling of being stuck. We've all had those moments where the rules of our lives feel too tight, the expectations too heavy, and the environment too predictable. Shakespeare's play starts in exactly that kind of tension. It begins with two different kinds of disorder. One is domestic, and the other is political. In the house of Oliver, we meet Orlando, a young man who is essentially a stranger in his own home. His older brother, Oliver, is a bitter man who has denied Orlando the education and the inheritance he deserves. This isn't just a family spat, it's a fundamental injustice that leaves Orlando adrift. At the same time, the royal court is under a shadow. Duke Frederick has usurped the throne from his brother, the rightful Duke Senior, who has been forced into exile in the Forest of Arden. The court is a place of suspicion and shifting loyalties, a sharp contrast to the freedom of the woods. The spark that sets everything in motion happens during a wrestling match at the court. Orlando, seeking to prove himself, enters the ring and defeats the court champion, a man named Charles. This victory does two things. It makes Orlando a local hero, and it catches the eye of Princess Rosalind and her cousin Celia. Rosalind is the daughter of the exiled Duke Senior, and she carries the weight of her father's loss. But the joy of the match is short-lived. Duke Frederick, the usurper, sees Rosalind as a threat to his power. He banishes her, citing her father's perceived treason. Celia, who is deeply devoted to her cousin, refuses to let her go into exile alone. In a move that defines much of the play's energy, the two women decide to flee to the Forest of Arden. To protect themselves in the wild, they decide to change who they are. Rosalind disguises herself as a young man named Ganymede, and Celia takes on the persona of a simple shepherdess named Eliana. They are accompanied by Touchstone, the court clown, who brings a bit of the palace's wit into the woods. As they enter the forest, the play shifts its tone. The Forest of Arden isn't just a collection of trees, it's a symbolic space where the rigid rules of society start to dissolve. In the woods, we find the exiled Duke Senior and his followers. They aren't living in misery, though. They are finding a strange kind of peace in the sweet uses of adversity. They've learned to live with less, finding a grace in the hardship that the court lacked. But not everyone finds peace. We meet Jax, a man who has become a professional melancholic. He wanders the edges of the group, offering cynical, heavy-handed commentary on the absurdity of human life and the inevitability of decay. He's the shadow to the forest's light. While the women are navigating the woods, Orlando is also wandering through them, accompanied by his loyal, starving servant, Adam. Orlando is a man caught between two worlds, trying to find his footing after being cast out by his brother. As it turns out, the forest brings these characters together in ways they didn't expect. Back at the palace, Duke Frederick is still looking for Orlando, and he pressures Oliver to capture him. But a sudden, dramatic shift occurs. While wandering, Oliver is attacked by a lioness. Orlando, despite their history of bitterness, steps in and saves his brother's life. This act of heroism is a turning point for Oliver. He undergoes a radical transformation, moving from a villainous antagonist to a man of virtue. He is reconciled with Orlando, and this domestic healing mirrors the larger, more chaotic romantic entanglements happening deeper in the forest. This is where the heart of the play's comedy takes place. As Rosalind, still disguised as the young man Ganymede, encounters Orlando, she realizes she is deeply in love with him. However, she doesn't just reveal herself. Instead, she decides to use her disguise to her advantage. She offers to cure Orlando of his lovesickness. She tells him that she can pretend to be Rosalind, allowing him to practice his wooing and his romantic speeches under her guidance. It's a complex, layered game of identity. Orlando is essentially falling in love with a woman who is pretending to be the woman he loves, all while she is pretending to be a man. This setup creates a web of romantic confusion. While Rosalind is testing Orlando, other characters are caught up in their own pursuits. The shepherd Silvius is pining for the haughty Phoebe, who, in a classic comedic twist, develops a sudden and intense interest in the disguised Rosalind. Even the clown, Touchstone, finds himself in a romance with a simple country girl named Audrey. The forest acts as a transformative space where these characters are stripped of their social pretenses. In the court, you are a princess or a soldier or a servant. In Arden, you are just a person driven by your impulses. As we move toward the end, the play begins to weave these disparate threads together. The chaos of the forest starts to settle into a new kind of order. but it's an order that has been earned through trial and performance. Rosalind, using her wit and the cover of her Ganymede persona, begins to orchestrate the resolution. She facilitates the marriages of the various couples, bringing a sense of harmony to the romantic madness. The resolution is both romantic and political. As the truth of Rosalind's identity is revealed, the social masks fall away. The various couples, Orlando and Rosalind, Oliver and Celia, Silvius and Phoebe, and Touchstone and Audrey, are brought into alignment. But the restoration isn't just about who is married to whom. A piece of news arrives from the court. Duke Frederick has had a sudden religious conversion and has decided to renounce his claim to the throne. He is returning the dukedom to the rightful Duke Senior. The political usurpation is undone and the social order is restored. The play ends with a grand celebration of marriage. The tension that began the story in the court has been resolved through the transformative experience of the forest. The brothers are reconciled, the rightful ruler is back on the throne, and the lovers are paired off. However, Shakespeare leaves us with a small, lingering note of reality in the form of Jacques. Even as the music plays and the weddings are celebrated, Jacques remains a reminder of the world's inherent sadness and the complexity of the human condition. He is the one who reminds us that even in a comedy, life isn't entirely simple. When we look at As You Like It through a modern lens, several themes stand out. The first is the tension between nature and nurture, or more specifically, the contrast between the court and the forest. The court is presented as a place of artifice, corruption, and rigid hierarchy. It's a place where you have to perform your status. The forest, while dangerous and unpredictable, is a place of authenticity. It's where characters are stripped of their titles and forced to confront their true selves. This leads directly into the theme of identity and performance. The play is obsessed with how we present ourselves to the world. Rosalind's disguise as Ganymede is perhaps the most famous example. By stepping outside her gender and her social class, she gains a level of agency she never had in the court. She becomes the director of the play's romantic resolution. This suggests that identity isn't a fixed, unchangeable thing, but something fluid that can be explored and even reshaped. We also see the role of the fool as a vital part of this exploration. In Shakespeare, the fool is rarely just a source of laughs. They are often the most perceptive characters on stage. Touchstone uses wit to bridge the gap between the sophisticated court and the rustic country life, highlighting the absurdities in both. Jacques, on the other hand, uses his melancholy to provide a philosophical counterweight to the play's joy. They both speak truths that the more serious characters are too caught up in their own drama to see. Ultimately, As You Like It is a play about the restoration of order, but it's an order that has been fundamentally changed by the journey. The political and domestic divides are healed, but the world that emerges is one where the boundaries between roles, between man and woman, between courtier and shepherd, between king and exile, have become more porous. The play suggests that while we might need the structures of society to function, it is often the wild spaces of life that allow us to find out who we actually are. It's a celebration of the messiness of love and the unexpected ways that hardship can lead to grace.